So they are asking me to start from page 251
Yes.
from the middle of the page.
Yes. We have seen.
Yeah. We have seen. So I'll read the sentence and then we will see whether it's clear. We have seen that from this apprehending consciousness arises the movement of mind, the movement by which the individual knower regards a form of his own universal being as if other than he. But in the divine mind, there is immediately or rather simultaneously another movement or reverse side of the same movement, an act of union in being which heals this phenomenal division and prevents it from becoming, even for a moment, solely real to the knower. Okay. Big para. Okay. Now, before we look into this, we have to get some basic ideas. All right. What is meant by the movement of mind? Division. Okay, it is the mind that makes division. But this division is not real, it is apparent. In the physical world, everything seems to be divided, but from a practical point of view, it is divided. But from the essential point of view, it is not divided. There is a oneness hiding behind the so-called multiplicity. Okay, that's a movement of mind. And what is this apprehending consciousness? The apprehending consciousness is the comprehending consciousness. The apprehending consciousness is that which goes into each separate thing that it has created. Okay? The comprehending consciousness is the consciousness that includes everything in itself. So, in the supermind, both these things are there. Triple status of the supermind. 1, 2, 3. In number 1, it is the unity that is there. There is no multiplicity, is not there apparent at all, but it is potentially there, just like the tree in the seed. It is potentially there, but there is no apparent multiplicity there in the first one. The second one, the division starts in conception, not in reality. Okay, in conception. So, if you want to put it in another way, it's easier to understand. The one vast ocean, okay, which is absolutely static, contains the possibility of making waves. In the second one, the waves start forming. So, if a yogi has the experience of the primary status of supermind, he will see only oneness. He will not see any multiplicity at all. But if he has the second aspect of the, he will see both. He will see multiplicity as well as the beginning of unity. You come down to the third level, there it is, multiplicity is more apparent. The waves are bigger, more clearly defined, and it is also each wave is beginning to forget that it is part of the sea. So if a yogi goes to that level, he realizes that the unity is there in the background, but the multiplicity is more prominent. In the second status of supermind, the unity is more prominent, and in the background you can see multiplicity forming itself. Okay? This is the triple status of supermind. Now that's what he's saying here in different words. Okay? So we have seen that from this apprehending consciousness, that means the separation, okay, it creates each thing and goes into each one separately. So that is separation. Okay? So we have seen that from the apprehending consciousness arises the movement of mind. The movement by which the individual knower, okay, the individual knower, the one who is going there, regards a form of his own universal being as if other than he. He is the universe, okay, just like my body is part of universal matter. But I don't see that now. I see it only as my soul is one individual form of the universal soul. So if you are at that level, Srimad is saying, the individual knower regards a form of his own universal being as if other than he. So he can see himself in two ways. He can see his individuality, he can also see his universal aspect. Okay? That's what he's saying. Because it's the second status of the supermind. Then regards the form of his own as if other than he. But in the divine mind, there is immediately, or rather simultaneously, another movement or reverse side of the same movement, an act of union in being which heals this phenomenal division and prevents it from becoming, even for a moment, solely real to the knower. The multiplicity is modified by the unity, so that the multiplicity does not become absolutely real. Then there will be chaos in the world. So there is the unity behind which is holding it together. That's what he's saying. Can we get some image of this sort of thing in the physical world? I was just thinking of the running of a factory. Okay, suppose there is a manager on top. Okay, and he is working through his assistant manager, and he is working through supervisors, and there are workers on the ground. The manager assures that each machine is working in tandem with the others and not being absolutely individually. Someone is doing something, another machine will be doing the opposite. You will be working at cross purposes. But that does not happen. That's what he's saying. That there is the total differentiation and multiplicity is not chaotic. It is held together. Okay? Now see that? That's what he's saying. Individual knower regards the form of his own universal being. Universal being, his oneness. And the individual knower, his separate existence. Okay? So, but a form of his own as if other than himself. So at one level, you can see both. But that it does not deteriorate into chaos, because he's saying in the divine mind, I think the divine mind, he's talking of the supermind only, okay? There is immediately, or rather simultaneously, another movement or reverse side of the same movement, an act of union in being which heals this phenomenal division and prevents it from becoming, even for a moment, solely real to the knower. The multiplicity doesn't become real. It is held in check. I think it's quite clear. No? You can understand that. Then, on the reverse side of the same, an act of union in being. Note also, an act of union in being. When he's saying that, it's a substance itself. That is not frittering out into chaotic multiplicity. It's actually, there is just like in our case, here in the lowest level, each body seems to be separate, but it is matter that is common to all these things. So it is that matter which is the common thing and holding it together. So, then, from which heals the phenomenal division and prevents it from becoming, even for a moment, solely real to the knower. Solely real means you don't see the unity, you see only the multiplicity, which is happening at our level. Even at our level, we are sufficiently aware, you can see the unity behind. The best example is the species. Each species, there is a unit, there is a multiplicity, and yet there is something common to all of them. That unity is there. Like mankind and men, like cats and cat nests, if you want, the species. So that is there. Okay? So then he's saying, this act of conscious union is that which is represented otherwise in dividing mind, obtusely, ignorantly, quite externally, as contact in consciousness between divided beings and separate objects. So, at our level, he is saying, this contact of conscious union is that which is represented otherwise in dividing mind. Now that in the supermind, there is both division as well as multiplicity. But when it comes down here, it seems to be only multiplicity. This act of conscious union is that which is represented otherwise in dividing mind, obtusely, ignorantly, quite externally, as contact in consciousness between divided beings and separate objects, and with this contact in divided consciousness, is primarily represented by the principle of sense. It is a sense that makes you see the division. In other words, if the sense is not there, how can you lose your senses? By rising in consciousness. If you rise in consciousness, first of all, at this level, we have the 5 senses. Okay? If you go to the higher level, they become subtle senses. You go even higher up, senses have disappeared and you are using other instruments of knowledge. So, identity, okay, sight, these instruments make you see the oneness more than the multiplicity. That is what he is saying. This act of conscious union is that which is represented otherwise in divided mind obtusely. The word obtuse is interesting, no? It is acute and obtuse. Acute is less than 90 degrees. Obtuse is more than 90 degrees. So, the obtuse is towards the oneness. The acute is towards the oneness and the obtuse is towards the multiplicity. So, that's the way he is using. It's a geometric term, I think, no? Yes. No, yeah, that's right, geometry. So, ignorantly, quite externally, as contact in consciousness between divided beings and separate objects, and with us, this contact in divided consciousness primarily represented by the principle of sense. On this basis of sense, on this contact of union, subject to division, there you are, okay? There is union but subject to division. The action of the thought mind founds itself and prepares for the return to a higher principle of union in which division is made subject to unity and subordinate. Substance, then, as we know it, material substance, is the form in which mind, acting through sense, contacts the conscious being of which is itself a movement of knowledge. Let's look at that last sentence, a little complicated. Substance, then, as we know it, material substance at this level is the form in which mind, acting through sense, contacts the conscious being. The conscious being is the Sat, that, if you want, the self, or the Pradhana of the Sankhya philosophy, that which is absolutely subtle but infinite, eternal, real, featureless. It is contacting that, but of which it is itself a movement of knowledge. The conscious being is seeing itself because it's all one at the highest level. So, it is seeing itself as if divided. Not very easy to understand, but if we this last bit we'll understand if you go again back to that supramental level. Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda are all one. But a time comes when consciousness says, I purposely separate myself from my own force, its force, and then tells its force, I now separate myself also from my substance. I am the substance, I am the Ananda, I am the force, but I separate myself for creation's sake. So it says to force, make forms out of my substance and present them to me, and I will enjoy what you are doing. So Purusha is telling Prakriti that. You can see it in that way. And all this happens at the supramental level. Unfortunately, that intention, when it comes down here, they really become all separate. Really mean practically real. But actually, in essence, no. So, behind the apparent forms, the apparent surface, if you go in, you will see the oneness. So, that is what happens when the Mayavadin and the Buddhists are making their mind silent and going to the self. They see the oneness and they decide that the physical world is unreal. It's only images. You go one more step up and you say, those things which you are seeing as mere images and shadows from the second level, there is actually a reality behind that form also. Go and see, that is what gives the reality to the physical world. Not the form, not the shadows, but behind the shadow also there is a reality. That you get from the third level. That's what he's saying. He has said that elsewhere also, but this is what he's saying.
The conscious being would be Pradhana in the Sankhya, or would it be Purusha?
Purusha is only consciousness.
Okay.
So, Pradhana would actually correspond to the Sat, the substance.
The material of Prakriti.
Yes.
The basic material.
Yes. The material which Prakriti is using.
So in that sense, okay.
Yeah.
So Purusha is a conscious being.
Huh?
Purusha is a conscious being.
Yes.
And Prakriti is the force.
The force.
It's nature.
The force. At the lowest level, that force seems to be mechanical, unconscious. The wind is blowing, the river is flowing, okay? The sun is shining. There is no consciousness. It doesn't seem to be conscious. But there is consciousness hiding inside. Because there is a diminution. But as it keeps rising, all these things take on their real aspect. So, that which is Prakriti here, which is unconscious, becomes fully conscious there. It's a conscious power. Because consciousness and force become one at the highest level. That is our...
Purusha and Prakriti, they are the same.
They become one at the highest level. Yeah. Because Satchidananda, they all become one only at the highest level.
But at this level, what is the correlation?
What is that?
What is the relation at our level?
Oh, they are always together, but in inverse proportion. See, in matter, force is 100% in a way. The nuclear energy is there. You don't see it, but it is there. But where is consciousness? There is no consciousness in the river. There is no consciousness in the nuclear energy. It's all mechanical. But it is there hiding. So you can say in mathematical terms, if you want to understand, okay? And in matter, Prakriti 100%, okay? Purusha 0. As you keep going up and go to the self, full consciousness, immutability. Immutability, no force. So Prakriti 0 if you want. But one thing, don't say 0 or 100%, 99.99999 and 0.00001. Because that consciousness is there hiding, it is that which makes it go up. If that consciousness is not there, then how will the evolution take place? Something purely mechanical will never evolve and...
Human beings are the, you could say 50% of...
Yeah, you can say that. 50%, 50%. It's a halfway mark. Okay? But at the highest level, they become one. So here they seem to be, up to this level, they seem to be, in fact, that's the reason why even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, okay, there is this problem of the world is something separate. There's a gulf between spirit and matter. This gulf between spirit and matter you see in all the spiritual planes up to our mind level. Even Sri Aurobindo had a problem. Then when he went to the third level, so you can put it in this way. First level, ignorance, multiplicity. Second level, the spiritual level, oneness and no ignorance, knowledge. Because you are seeing the oneness. But there is a gulf between the two. Spirit and matter seem to be separate. How to heal this gulf? Third level. If you go to the supermind, then you see that, oh, it seems to be like that, but that's different. There is another way of explaining this, that at each level, the laws that operate and the way you see knowledge is different at each level. So here the physical world is real. In the second, the physical world is unreal. Third level, again it is real. And Mother says something interesting about the supermind. She says that in the supermind, it is so different even from spiritual laws. In fact, to understand what she is saying, we can think of it in this way also. Because you remember that 1958 experience, the supramental boat. She is selecting people who are ready for the supramental boat. How is she seeing? She is not seeing whether you are good, you are bad, you are generous or... No. She is just seeing the color. You are ready. So the values of good, bad, this, that, all finished, gone. Simply the color is revealing whether ready or not.
And she was saying that it is, even the material is different.
Yes, the material is subtle. In fact, in one time Mother says that I can see Puraniji, He is with, after he passed away, he is with Sri Aurobindo, and I see him playing with the supramental substance, she says. So, but mind by its very nature tends to know and sense substance of conscious being, not in its unity or totality, but by the principle of division. It sees it, as it were, in infinitesimal points which it associates together in order to arrive at a totality. And into these viewpoints and associations, cosmic mind throws itself and dwells in them. So dwelling, creative by its inherent force as the agent of real idea, bound by its own nature to convert all its perceptions into energy of life, all existent, converts all his self-aspectings into various energy of his creative force of consciousness. Cosmic mind turns these, its multiple viewpoints of universal existence, into standpoints of universal life. It turns them in matter into forms of atomic being, instinct with the life that forms them, and governed by the mind and will that actuate the formation. At the same time, the atomic existences which it thus forms must, by the very law of their being, tend to associate themselves to aggregate. And each of these aggregates also, instinct with the hidden life that forms and the hidden mind and will that actuate them, bears with it a fiction of a separated individual existence. Each such individual object or existence is supported according as the mind in it is implicit or explicit, unmanifest or manifest, by its mechanical ego of force, in which the will to be is dumb and imprisoned, but nonetheless powerful, or by its self-aware mental ego, in which the will to be is liberated, conscious, separately active. Very difficult, not easy. So, we'll try and understand what he's saying, okay? So, even though, even our reading, okay, but still, you have to go again satisfied. So, we'll do one thing. We'll first have an overall look at what he's saying. Then we'll go into each one. So, the basic idea, I'm reading to you in other words, okay? Because sometimes you change one word, it becomes easy to understand, okay? So, now, what he's saying in this para, mind is the principle of division. Its power of division breaks up all forms into infinitesimals, which it aggregates to make finite forms. So first of all, it breaks everything up into infinitesimals, and then it aggregates them to make forms. So the forms are not made on the way down. They are sort of made on the way up. That's what it seems to be suggesting. Okay? So, because first of all, the involution, there is a breaking up. Now there is a formation. I think that's correct, because matter is the base from which everything comes, and matter is one. But when life comes into the picture, there is formation of the multiplicity starts at that level. You can say that stones also are multiplicity, but that's another way of seeing. Okay, so what he's saying, mind is the principle of division. Its power of division breaks up all forms into infinitesimals, which it aggregates to make finite forms. Cosmic mind then enters into all these finite forms thus created. You remember he spoke about apprehending consciousness. That's what he's repeating in different words here. He's saying cosmic mind then enters into all these finite forms, apprehending consciousness, thus created. This cosmic mind, armed and guided by the real idea, creates life forms, but in multitudes, because of the nature of mind to divide. Okay, so I want to go back to that real idea. Okay, what he's saying, cosmic mind enters into each thing, into these finite forms thus created. The cosmic mind, armed and guided by the real idea, okay? That means the real idea is the blueprint. You have to understand this, okay? Just like an architect in the physical world doesn't start building a house. He first makes a blueprint. That's a conception. Then he collects all the materials and all the things and then starts building the house. So the real idea is there in the supermind. To each thing, you can use the word archetype also. The archetype of everything is there, okay? I use the word blueprint because it becomes easy to understand what he's saying. So the real idea is the blueprint, the ideal form, the seed of everything in the physical world. To everything in the physical world, there is a corresponding real idea. So necessarily it has to be infinite, real ideas. So real idea, and why real? Because to understand Sri Aurobindo very often use the contrast. If you use the contrast, then it's possible to understand. Because then, otherwise it seems a very bland thing. Sometimes you'll feel, what exactly is it? Then if you contrast it with the opposite, then you understand the importance of what he's saying. So real idea, because at our level, I may have an idea, it can be manifested, it can become a reality, it may not become a reality. Also, it will take time, okay? I want to be an engineer, that's my idea in life. It will take me 5 years. And I may not also become that. Whereas there in the supermind, that idea is absolutely real. Nothing can stop the result, number one. Number two, instantaneous. No time limit. So that's why it's the real idea. Okay? So, mind then enters into these finite forms that thus created. This cosmic mind, armed and guided by the real idea. So that is what it has got, the real idea behind itself. So it won't do something wrong. The idea is there, it's executing the idea. Okay. So armed and guided by the real idea creates life forms, but in multitudes. Okay, it doesn't create, it creates infinitely because of the nature of mind that divide. These conceptual self-aspectings are turned into material forms with life infused into them. So, these conceptual self-aspectings, it is conceptual at that level. The real idea is conceptual. The blueprint of anything is conceptual. So there also the real idea is conceptual, and it turns this with these conceptual self-aspectings. I've got so many different aspects. I can become this, I can become that. The divine is capable of taking any form. No? So self-aspectings. These aspects are all of his own self. Therefore self-aspectings are turned into material forms with life in them, infused into them. The infinite atomic divisions then aggregate to create material forms with life inherent in them. Each living form thus created feeds itself on the separate, distinct from the rest. So each one, all they are different, each life form is feeding itself on its other, which is itself actually. An animal eats up another animal. No? There is a food chain. This idea he has discussed elsewhere also. The higher eats the lower. The next also higher eats the lower. There is a food chain. It feeds on itself. And I think we read last time, the eater eating is himself eaten. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Feeds itself, feels itself to be separate, distinct from the rest. Okay, each living form thus created, not feeds, feels itself to be separate, distinct from the rest. This is, of course, an illusion created by the ego. But this will to be, which is really the conscious force, cannot be imprisoned and thus emerges and liberates itself into separate individual states. This is what he's saying in the para. Now if you want, we'll try and see each sentence. Okay. So the first thing he's saying is, but mind by its very nature tends to know and sense substance of conscious being. Okay? Substance of conscious being. Okay? Not in its unity or totality, but by the principle of division. In the supermind, it knows the unity. But mind means he is talking of mind from the overmind level. Its function is to divide, okay, to make multiplicity. So, the principle of mind is division. That's why we know that our level, the mind functions by analysis. It can break up something to understand. It doesn't have the capacity of synthesis. It can't synthesize. It totals up. It divides and totals up. But the totality is never the synthetic whole. Okay, so it sees it as it were in infinitesimal points which it associates together in order to arrive at a totality. So there you are. It breaks up first and then starts aggregating forms. Atoms aggregating become molecules, and molecules aggregating become living creatures. So there is a whole process of aggregation. But at the life level, there is also disaggregation. Okay, this is matter, but in the chapter on life, he has discussed that. It constructs and then destroys, constructs and destroys. It sees it as it were in infinitesimal points which it associates together in order to arrive at a totality, and into these viewpoints and associations, cosmic mind throws itself and dwells in them. The cosmic mind goes into each one and dwells in them. Okay, so it's cosmic mind that does that. Okay, into the individual mind, it goes into each individual mind. So dwelling, creative by its inherent force as the agent of real idea. Note interestingly, the real idea is up there, but it becomes an agent of the real idea. Okay, so just as we were discussing now, the manager is acting through his assistant manager, and the assistant manager through the supervisors, and then finally you come down to the level of the workers. There's a hierarchy. So here also there seems to be a hierarchy. The supermental, the real idea is there, mind is the agent of the real idea, and it is creating this. Okay, so dwelling, creative by its inherent force as the agent of real idea, bound by its own nature to convert all its perceptions into energy of life. Because there is an involution. Mind creates out of itself life. It is life that creates matter. He has said that elsewhere. Supermind creates mind, mind creates life, and life creates matter. Okay? It's the other way around in evolution. In evolution, it's the other. Matter seems to be creating life, and life seems to be creating matter. But in evolution, it's the other way around. So dwelling, creative by its inherent force as the agent of real idea, bound by its own nature to convert all its perceptions into energy of life, as the all-existent, the substance, converts all his self-aspectings into various energy of his creative force of consciousness, cosmic mind turns these, its multiple viewpoints of universal existence, into standpoints of universal life. So its mind turns these, its multiple viewpoints of universal existence, into standpoints of universal life. That substance becomes universal life. It turns them in matter into forms of atomic being, instinct with the life that forms them. So, mind is instinct with life, it creates life. Life is also instinct with matter, it creates life. But life is there also in matter. That's what he's saying. It turns them into matter, into forms of atomic being, and the atomic being is instinct with the life that forms them, and governed by the mind and will that actuate the formation. All are there in matter. There is mind which is guiding and life which is creating. Cosmic mind turns these multiple viewpoints into standpoints of universal life. It turns them in matter into forms of atomic being, instinct with that life that forms them, and governed by the mind and will that actuate the formation. In other words, there is matter, there is a life that is creating the form, but there is a guidance from the mind. That's what he's saying. In any creation that you do, there has to be substance, There has to be a force that is using the substance, and there has to be an idea to govern that creating. Even such a simple thing as creating a pot, you need all these three. You need a potter who is creating, you need the substance, the clay, and you need what you are going to do, that's a mind. It has to do that. So all the three have to be there at the same time. So there is matter, there is life as well as mind, and all are involved in each other. Cosmic mind turns these multiple viewpoints into universal existence, into standpoints of universal life. It turns them in matter into forms of atomic being, instinct with the life that forms them. Instinct with the life that forms them. The forms are created by the life and governed by the mind and will that actuate the formation. At the same time, the atomic existences which it thus forms must, by the very law of their being, tend to associate themselves, to aggregate. And why is he saying this? Because there is multiplicity, but behind the multiplicity, the unity is there, the principle of unity. So the principle of unity is asserting itself. That's what he said. At the same time, the atomic existences which it thus forms must, by the very law of their being, tend to associate themselves to aggregate. And each of these aggregates also, instinct with the hidden life that forms and the hidden mind and will that actuate them, bears it with a fiction of a separated individual existence. So, it seems to be totally some separate things, but actually there is a connectedness. We don't see the connectedness, but the connectedness, if you go to a higher level, you will see the connectedness. That's what he's saying. At our level, with our senses, we can't see the connectedness. We have to discard the senses and use other instruments of knowledge, you will see the connectedness. Okay? That's what you see. When you make your mind silent and go up to the next level, there you see the oneness of things. The multiplicity starts becoming unreal to you. Okay? The Buddhistic philosophy, the Mayavadin philosophy, all of them say the same thing. So,
here the phrase bears with it means exactly?
Pardon?
This phrase bears with it. Each of these aggregates bears with it a fiction of a separated individual existence.
Okay.
Right. It has the fiction of a separated individual existence.
Bears with it means it carries within itself. Yeah. It bears with it a fiction of a separated individual existence. Each such individual object or existence is supported according as the mind in it is implicit or explicit, unmanifest or manifested, by its mechanical ego of force, in which the will to be is dumb and imprisoned, but nonetheless powerful, or by its self-aware mental ego, in which the will to be is liberated, conscious, separately active. Each such, I'll read that sentence again. Each such individual object or existence is supported according as the mind in it is implicit or explicit, unmanifest or manifest. Okay? In a stone, the individual object is supported, but the mind is implicit. It is unmanifested. But take an animal or a human being, the mind is manifested. So it depends at which level you are saying. Okay, that's what he's saying. According to as a mind in it is implicit or explicit, unmanifest or manifest, by its mechanical ego of force, in which the will to be is dumb. The will to be is dumb in the stone. Okay, it becomes, because of the will to be is there, it becomes the animal. It's not that dumb in the animal, nor is it absolutely dumb in the human being. It becomes quite explicit. Okay? Imprisoned, but nonetheless powerful. So, in fact, he uses other words there. He says, in matter, it is not seen. In plants, it is implicit. In animals, it is imprisoned. And in man, it can become explicit. In the yogi, not in the ordinary man, because ordinary man is almost like an animal only. So, this he has said elsewhere, okay? So, not here. So, as the mind is implicit or explicit, in other words, he's saying that the consciousness becomes more and more obvious as you keep climbing in higher and higher consciousness. In matter, consciousness does not seem to be there. It is implicit. But as you climb higher and higher in the animal, it is becoming less implicit, more explicit. And in man, it becomes even more explicit. Explicit means it shows itself, the mind. Okay? And in the yogi, it shows itself even more. In other words, instead of getting lost into words, if you want to summarize what he's saying, all creation starts at the supramental level. And the supramental is the basic truth of everything is Satchidananda. Although Satchidananda seems to be three things, it is only one. But for creation, this oneness starts saying, I will create and therefore I will use my own substance which is me, my own force which is me. I will separate myself and create these things. And it starts creating and creates a multiplicity. And it hides itself in the opposite of itself, but it is going into each thing that is created, it is going in. And going in how? With mind and life. Into matter. And then evolving from there again. But he's saying this in this way.
Basically, it is the evolution of consciousness across.
Yes. Yeah. The problem arises because these three things which are separate are one. Then it's very difficult for us to imagine the...
If consciousness is the main thing which needs to be evolved, why so much focus on the forms and so much focus on...
The focus on the form is here at this level.
Okay.
There is no focus on the up. Because even when you go to the life, okay, the form is fluid. Your vital emotions have forms, but they are fluid, okay, like clouds, okay. It is substance. Don't think that your vital emotions and sensations are abstract. They have form. Just like ice, water vapor. Okay, they have forms. Someone who can see your emotions, they'll be able to say, oh, he is an angry man, because the color will be there, the form will be there. Okay? Even the ego has a form and color. Okay? Then thoughts, even more subtle. That's why they compare it to earth, water, fire, air. You can notice that it's becoming subtler and subtler and subtler. The only place where you can say that almost no substance is there is the ether. That's the highest level. But that also is substance. It is the rarest and rarest of substance. The divine is substance. He is not something vague and hazy.
So consciousness, if nature has already thought that this form will inherit this much of consciousness, this type of form will have this consciousness, our effort to increase it, how will it evolve? Like if we're making effort to increase our consciousness, is it possible or not?
Of course it is possible. Otherwise, how will you... yoga is not possible then otherwise. Okay. But what is making you want to evolve? Do all men want to evolve? No. Why? When do they want to evolve? When the divine element in you says, I am not satisfied with my imperfections. Okay? That means the psychic has to awaken. When the psychic awakens, or if the mind is sufficiently developed, the psychic may not be. It is there in the background. But when it says, I want to understand life divine, but I can't. There is so much of limitation. I want to go from here to Madras in 1 second, but I can't. It will take me 3 hours. You are absolutely fed up with your limitations. You see in yourself so much of dirt, you see. Then you say, I don't want this. So then yoga starts at that level. Not otherwise. Most of the human beings are living what Srimdo calls a physical vital life. They are quite satisfied with it.
Also, one thing is not quite clear from this, that it seems that the unity has become this multiplicity.
Yes.
Infinitesimally and infinitely.
Yes.
And again that multiplicity is trying to recover the unity.
That's right.
But why? I mean, if you just wanted to recover in the first place, then why you became
Okay.
multiple.
Yeah,
That is
okay.
a question I also asked
Yeah.
last time.
Divided.
Yeah, no,
The
no.
senses, if it is becoming multiple,
Yeah.
then again you become one sense.
Yeah. Why is it becoming one? Because you have to understand then the principle of the Leela. Okay. Now, the first thing one has to say is that this problem cannot be solved at the mental level. That's the first thing. Because the divine has got everything. Why does he need to play this game of hiding himself in the opposite and coming up? So Sri Aurobindo says it is not possible to understand, but by a few examples, you can extend that basic idea to the divine. And what is that? Human beings are not satisfied with simple things. They want a challenge in life. Okay? There is Mount Everest. I have to climb it. Okay? There is air, space. I want to go to the moon. So what is it in him that is going? And the more difficult the problem, the more satisfaction he will get by conquering it. Okay? Just like I use the word computer games normally, there are levels, na? Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Are you satisfied with level 1, level 2? No. So the divine is saying, I'll create a computer game with the maximum difficulty and I will solve it. So this is one way of understanding. This is one way of understanding. Sri Aurobindo himself says this. I'm not saying, he doesn't say computer game, but
In that chapter called The Delight of Existence, the solution,
yes.
in the first paragraph, he says that it has to be only for delight.
yes.
But
Delight is the only reason, nothing else. Ananda.
But if we are made up of Ananda, there's so much of agony and so much of pain and so much of dissatisfaction. It seems like we are rather than made up of Ananda, we are made up of the opposite of it.
It is the opposite at the lowest level.
And that's how it is supposed to be.
Okay, so if you want to understand this, keep in mind the ocean or the atmosphere. Okay? Remember that it's like the ocean. Take the deepest part of the ocean, Pacific Ocean. If you are swimming on the top, okay, light is available to you and you are free. You can swim as you want. If you keep going down, 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 what happens? The density increases, the light decreases. Density increases, light decreases. Picture this to the whole of superconscient and inconscient. It's like this ocean. The more you come down, you are at the body mind life level, you are at the bottom of the sea. Okay? And why should that be? Because his maximum difficulty he is creating so that he imprisons himself in the maximum and escapes. And because he is divine in essence, that 0.0001, that is what activates the evolution. If that is not there, there will be no evolution. But that 0.0001 is the saving factor. That is the one that causes the rising. And it's a very slow process. And he is not satisfied by only one. He is doing that through, today it is 7.5 billion, but tomorrow it will be even more. And 7.5 billion is those who are living. But what about those who have come and gone and those who will come? The game is infinite. It goes on and on and on. So the only reason for a creation is Ananda. And you can see that to a certain extent also because all creation in the physical world, whether it is poetry, whether it is sculpture, whether it is architecture, whether it is painting, it always gives Ananda. Any creation gives Ananda. Even when you solve a mathematics problem, you are getting Ananda.
in fact, in the Puranic system, the name for the Ananda Loka is Jana Loka. Jana means Jana.
Birth. Yes, exactly. Janaloka. That's right. So Ananda comes from creation.